That's the first move in the game to me. Then, as a fresh silence fell upon the party, he began to ruminate upon the strangeness of the fact that elementals and malicious spirits may be very powerful, but their nature is so low and their intelligence so limited that they can nearly always be trapped by a satanic spark of reason, which is the salvation of mankind. The snare was such an obvious one, and yet Richard's true nature had reasserted itself so rapidly that the force which had moved him to try and break up their circle for its benefit had been scotched almost before it had chanced to operate. They settled down again, but in some subtle way the atmosphere had changed. The fire glowed red on the great pile of ashes. The candles burned unflickeringly in the 5 points of the star. And the electric globes above the cornices still lit every corner of the room with a soft, diffuse radiance. Yet the 4 friends made no further pretense of trying to sleep. Instead, they sat back while the moments passed, creeping with leaden feet towards the dawn. Perplexed and worried at the outburst, tense of new expectancy, now he felt that psychic forces were actually moving within the room, stealthily invisible but powerful. He knew them to be feelings their way and bay of the pentacle, seeking for any imperfection in the barrier he had erected, just as a strong current swirls and eddies about the jagged fissures of a reef searching for entrances into a lagoon. Crouched, clasped round his knees, staring apparently unseeing eyes, long lines of books, it seemed, that were listening intently, and the Duke watched him with special care, knowing that he was a weak spot to their defense. Presently, he knew the demon was near, and a cold, damp, evil wind came once more, chilling the perspiration and the night air that had broken about the candles and the snuffling and the room and the half-burnt match, which still was acrid, and the demon was still very much near. The shadows lengthened. The center of the ceiling became dusk. Gradually, as a witch caught a breath, they watched. The room was being plunged into darkness. Soundless and evil, the black shadow upon the ceiling grew in size and the bright until, after what a second, an eternity of time, obscure. No light remained save only the faintest line just above the rim of the top of the shelf. 5 candles burned steadily, the points of the 5-starred pentagram and dying fire. Pentagram. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? And you are listening to the Pentacle-Hours, and I am Winter Lake. It's 5 to 7 live in Chicago. It's my little show, and I enjoy it. And the feedback has been positive. Some people were querying, like trying to figure out more about me, history, and so on. I kind of am elusive, stranger, probably lead triple lives, have a lot of secrets. Nobody knows the full story, but that's the way I like to keep it, you know. I've been a little drama today, but drama is good. It makes things fun, I suppose. But all is well now. Locked up tight in the tower of the studio. Traffic outside looks really bad on Freya's Eve as we draw near to Saturnalia. Many have heard me go on about the bastardization of Christianity on the pagan holiday of Saturnalia, placing the birth of Jesus, who was actually born in June, in the middle of December for our little enjoyment. Kind of like the Easter Bunny was placed around the time of supposed Christ crucifixion. It's quite interesting. But it really, those dates in regards to the Easter Bunny has everything to do with Ostara, which is reaffirmation, power, resurgence, fertility, lust, desire, new roads, and so on. That is a high pagan holiday of Ostara. I've written a lot of different rituals around those surging days of April or something. But I think in the dark doldrums of winter, or during this period between December and February, actually it's been a very intense winter outside with the cold in the Chicago, Illinois area. You could fall into a lot of things. There's like something called Lupercalia and some other winter solstice different types of rituals or different festives that took place during this time, being December, and it's kind of fun. I received some more emails yesterday about dreams. I might do a little bit interpreting. Someone had written in about like seeing two separate dogs, like a black dog in the dream, then chewing off his leg. Then the leg grew back and he was running down and saw like two of his girlfriends in some kind of weird thing going on. And a lot of running, and it seemed like things were like eating him or something. It was kind of bizarre, and if it was real, it'd be terrifying, quite obviously a nightmare. But the symbols, when you see people that you've dated in your dream or something, that means that you have unresolved issues. If you're dreaming of your exes or your wives or whatever, not wives, right? But this would probably mean unresolved issues. And anything that's being like torn away or ripped away is something that you're not addressing. And dogs are kind of bad omens. Yesterday I was talking about black cats, so we had discussed black cats. Supposedly black cats are bad omens as well, but I don't think they are. And my caller, although getting kind of frisky on the phone, didn't think they were either. But when I hear about dogs or wolves or something, I don't know why I get kind of, a concern, because it seems or appears to be a destructive force. And being devoured is something that's kind of like in being engulfed and destroyed, and a lot of theory is, this is being made anew. You're being destroyed to be made anew. But I'm not sure. And then when you have the whole X thing going on, or seeing persons in your life, previous lives, we all live lives, don't we? In your dream, probably some kind of unresolved thing. Go beyond yourself, you must know yourself. And like all games, sacred and secular, the runes are meant to be played upon a field. The field represents the world that is always coming to be and passing away. You may want to use a special piece of fabric, colored or white, that you keep for this purpose alone. When you unfold the cloth that serves as your field, that very act can become a silent meditation. A weaving made of the weaver. It can be 14 inches to 18 inches and woven of 22 grades or hues of silk. Runes are fascinating. Glyphs, even other things that fabricated out of runes like stones or bones. I Ching reminds us of that. There were people that would be called the rune masters in ancient days. They would shake runes in a pouch, chant an invocation to Odin, request that the god be present, and then scatter the stones, drawing some answer question for divination. It also was from how they fell, which glyphs side up and so on and so on. The glyphs were down, you wouldn't have it, so you would only read from what you had seen. It was called the Venerable Method, but there's a lot of different ways to interpret the runes that are more satisfactory in techniques. And I was casting some runes last night for some people, and I was getting pretty amazing results. One had to deal with someone who's on top of their game, like this person makes a lot of money and blah, blah. And I said that probably in short order that they would have some kind of issue. Watch it today, actually, since it was last night. And so, not saying I'm some guru or whatever, knower, I am a psychic and I kind of do, obviously see a little bit into the future, what things can be manifested, what can be changed for the self, because it is a theater of the self after all, isn't it? And, the person was in a car crash today, not paying attention. And it's a woman, and now she's all mad and thinks like I put a spell on her. And I said, no, I didn't. It was just a rune reading that we had done. And I said to watch out today because things were averse. She had gotten like the Dagaz rune reversed, connected to some other types of Viking runes, if you want to look it up online, that were, anathema, the way it was laid out. And it showed that right away something was going to happen. And, it's true that they could be precursory or causality to action, that if someone is told that, hey, you're going to have a problem, that they bring about their own problem, kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that is quite possible. And I found that to be very occurring as well. You tell someone and they might even fulfill the prophecy, as opposed to, prophecy is a big word, as opposed to doing something to prevent it. When I do readings for myself, I take them with certain apprehension, because if you receive the tower, you don't know if you're just being messed with or if there's something out in the ether that might be looking to just mess with you. But the times that I have gone against the tower just in tarot divination, I've suffered horrible consequences. Not necessarily horrible, even that word's pretty big, but, it's kind of like I've went against it, and it was against my better judgment, and had a downfall due to seeing the tower. But very similar things occurred in the rune reading. Hence you crash your $50,000 Bentley or whatever. But, it's not that as the reader you want to bring about negative forces into a person's life. At least the real ones don't. At least I don't. And I consider myself real. And I've showed people the path, or really got them to realize and recognize the symbols and activate kind of their psychic eye, or whatever you want to call it, third eye. And a lot of people that have learned from me really know it. And they can see the symbols and they can see the signs, and they can watch events unfold, or what events that need to change, and, even things in their own lives that can change, and myself included. And I've been shown things as well. So it's all a learning process. But is it a thing where, as a reader, a psychic, rune thrower, master, whatever you want to call it, is it a thing that you are out to just do harm on people? I don't think so. Although, as I have spoken before about certain different tribes and groups there is an encountering, like in New Orleans. And I'm not bashing New Orleans. I want to get back to New Orleans as soon as possible. There's a lot of interesting, fun friends of mine down there. We have a blast. And I'm not bashing New Orleans. I'm just saying that there is a, kind of a core group of individuals that do go around kind of putting bad juju on people and then reward themselves by that juju. But as if you get a reading from me, it's not my intention to bring badness or curses or hexes or out or bring negative events in a person's life. So when I threw the runes last night and saw that things would happen in short order for this person, I kind of said, why don't you just stay home instead of going on another meaningless shopping spree? But anyway, people don't listen, and of course it is chaos outside. It is Freya's Day. I'm sure it's Freya's Day along the Magnificent Mile here in Chicago. Traffic was abhorrous. I just take the train from my apartment or from my house or from whatever hotel I'm at, and it's just easier. But, it's not an intent of the reader to bring a negative, but it is important for a reader to show that a negative exists. And this is another thing where you'll get into readers, whatever they're calling themselves, psychic, astrologers, whatever. And I see their little signs up all over the country, especially here in Chicago. I'll see like astrologer reader. And they'll never want to tell you anything negative. It's always a bright sunny day and Billy loves you and it's going to be good and give me my little $30 or whatever. I went into one, just to do it. There was a real one. I mean, I've gone into them. I chat with a few. I've met some real ones. But the one, that was really kind of a joke. I went into one, I'm not really trying to give up a location. This person is still in business and probably listens to my show. Well, anyway, I went into her little astrology enclave and got a reading by her. And she's like, oh, your life is great, and you don't really need to tweak anything, and she totally got it wrong. I mean, during that time, my life was kind of rough, man. It was a rough ride, and I was just doing it to see if that person could really spot it, or tell me anything that I didn't know. But it was kind of, it actually put me in a fun mood. It puts you in a different mind space, and you just hear it's all bright and sunny days outside. But, I kind of knew the truth. And even when I had seen some of the cards, it was a tarot reading. When I had seen some of the cards come out, I know the signs and symbols of all 78 of the cards back and forwards, reversed, inversed, in different 1,000 different spreads and all kinds of different stuff, and about 78 different types of tarot cards. So, I've been into that game since I was 5 years old, so it's hard to beat me at it. I even know how to do tarot manipulation and create causality for people. As I said, I'm not a saint, and I've done that too, where you lay out purposeful intention through the tarot cards to bring about some kind of resolution or evolution or change or manifestation, financial, whatever. But when she laid out her cards, I even knew that there was kind of some gloom and doom going on for me, and it was quite fun. And her interpretation, she was going on about, oh, it's going to be bright. You get the sun card, and I knew the sun was inversed, and then there was also the tower. But this was some time ago. This was a while ago. I'm just using it as a reference. An organizer of a large coven in Paris in the late 17th century, during the reign of Louis XIV. She was the daughter of a small shopkeeper and was married young to another shopkeeper, Deschays. She had one child by him, a daughter whom she named Margaret. Deschet's business failed, and he became a traveling jewelry salesman. In view of her later actions, it is supposed that in her early 20s, Catherine quietly poisoned him to attain freedom to organize her own life. By her own account, Catherine had been initiated as a witch at the age of 9. As a young and clever widow, she had no difficulty in earning a living by making and selling beautiful preparations. That's witchcraft-oriented things. Since she had good knowledge of herbs, as her clientele grew, she added fortune-telling to a range of services and evidently was sufficiently skilled at it to attract and keep more important people as regular clients. Later on, to those she trusted, she sold aphrodisiacs to use on reluctant lovers, and then preparations to produce unwanted children to be avoided. Eventually, she offered in secret poisons to get rid of unwanted husbands. Story of my life, isn't it? Her fame spread among well-to-do women, and her income increased to the point where, in 1666, it's a great year, she was able to buy a large house in the Rue Beauregard, in the suburb of St. Denis. I've been there, it's very nice. For a substantial sum of money. One of her lovers who lived there with her on and off was a public executioner, Levasseur. Secretly established, Catherine constructed in the garden of her house a private chapel where she could celebrate and worship the old gods. This brought her more money than her other activities when she offered initiation into the old religion to fashionable ladies and for large fees. Special offerings on their behalf. The Duchess de Foix, a close friend of royal family, had a service that was said in Catherine's chapel with the purpose of making her somewhat more buxom. Madame de Vassy paid for the service to give her more attractive looks and things. It's kind of early pre-transhumanism. Catherine collected about her an inner circle of friends. The women were La Bourse, Les Filastre, Les Lepoir, La Trignon, and La Vigoureux. In the coven, Catherine was known as La Voisin. The men members included Levasseur, the executioner, and Lesage, a chemist. According to the needs of her wealthy members, Catherine hired the services from time to time of a number of priests, including her own local vicar. It's crazy. Father Devoux of the Church of Our Lady of Good Tidings. Catherine's chapel was dedicated to the great goddess under the name of Astaroth and the horned god under the name of Asmodeus. Its walls were hung with black, and at one end stood an altar also draped in black and furnished with black candles. Under the altar cloth was a mattress. The rites performed in the chapel were later described by Catherine's daughter Marguerite, who was present and assisted on many occasions. Marguerite gave the details voluntarily with no reason to lie. The lady making the offering to secure her heart's desire arrived in the late evening, undressed and lay naked on the altar crosswise, her legs hanging down over the front edge. The priest conducting the service stood between her knees so that her body was completely exposed to him. The priest wore white linen vestments embroidered with pine cones. The pine cones, an ancient symbol of fertility. There you go. Resembling the top of some kind of promise of rebirth, since it is buried in the ground as if dead and springs up again in a new tree. The priest kissed the woman in various places, I'm sure, with a chalice and recited changed form of some black mass addressed to Astaroth and Asmodeus. Get the party started, I guess. Some of the ladies of the court of King Louis who were initiated in this way included the Duchess of Boulogne. That name does ring a bell. the Princess of Tingry and the Countess of Soissons. Another visitor was the English Duke of Buckingham, Chief Minister of Charles II, and ambassadorial visits to Louis. Most important of all, Catherine had brought about the initiation of Madame de Montespan with the hope that she would displace the king's former mistress. Subsequent offerings were to keep Louis interested in Madame de Montespan after she had borne him a number of children and was losing her looks. Catherine's activities came to the attention of the Paris police when one of her inner circle, Marie Beauce, drank too much at a dinner party and talked incautiously in the presence of an outsider. He reported the matter, and the interrogation of La Beauce led the police to Catherine. She was arrested in the Church of Our Lady of Good Tidings, and she had gone to the jailhouse, I guess. It's not a good place to get arrested. Or if you're a witch hanging out there, I guess might be a good hideout. After her house had been searched and the chapel inspected, Catherine was questioned under brutal torture. She revealed many names, but not that of Madame de Montespan. She was condemned and burned alive in public in 1680. She was about 40 years old at the time, and a contemporary portrait shows her small, thin, and beautiful. Held prisoner in a large cell with each members of her coven, not her cousin, probably had sex with her cousin, knowing her though. She is reported to have spent the night before her execution in scandalous debauchery, by which is meant she engaged in sexual relations with women and men. She refused to ask a pardon or to express any regret for what she had done or what she is. When requested to do so by the priest the next day, she spat at him. When they chained her to the stake, she kicked the burning logs away from her several times before the executioner managed to stack them up until the flame enveloped her and killed her. The public executioner, Nicolas Levasseur, had been a lover of hers for some years and a secret member of her coven. Man, I keep going there with the cousin thing, huh? Although my cousins are kind of weird. He asked to be excused from the task of executing her, and it was carried out by his deputy. Fascinating woman, Deshays. Fascinating. So much history tied up with Paris, France, with the witchcraft. It seems that their whole government is entrenched in witchcraft. And it probably is to this day. And I would not doubt it. It's fabulous. I was there in the summer. I go there all the time, any chance I get. It is kind of overrated on certain things, but I go visit Baudelaire's grave, and it's a very mysterious place. And the grave is actually kind of a secret spot. It's not where this idol of him is made. There's a statue of Baudelaire that sits out, but that's not where his grave is. His actual grave is disguised and hidden inside the sepulchres of this graveyard. And then you have all of the catacombs that just go under the city, where you just see thousands and probably more bodies and skeletons just piled on top of one another throughout these underground passages. And people, they talk about haunts here. That place is intense. It's kind of like the church I went to in Prague, that's made of skeletons and bones. It's I forget what they call the place, and I've been there. But in Paris, with having such an entrenched government involved in witchcraft, back in the 1600s, it almost seems epidemic throughout the world. Hungary was engulfed in it, and a series of other things. I think witchcraft and Satanism are the fastest growing religions in the world. There are a lot of practitioners of the religion that don't even know it. They're following the creeds, unconsciously aware that they are a part of the creed. and they're not even in the closet. They're living their lives in the way of Satanism or witchcraft. It is a trend that has been ongoing for the past century. Absolute speed and with absolute velocity. It goes into what I said about how people are seeking new ways to enlighten themselves and new ways to have experience, and witchcraft is finding that outlet. The old church edicts and religiosities like Christianity and Islam, they're dying away. They're not fulfilling people as much as the practice of witchcraft and divination and a series of other things. Or maybe people just find it more entertaining. I don't know. For me, it's not even quantified as a lifestyle. It's just, it's even kind of beyond a belief system. I'm just kind of at one with it. I'm at one with what I do. And I don't really try to convert people or bring people to the fold or whatever. And I'm not bashing other religions. I don't do that. I don't really care. Blasphemy is kind of tired. However, Islam is the largest religion in the world. It has a lot of followers. But it's very easy to just say that I have been, converted to Islam. Because, that's all they need to do. But with witchcraft being endemic, I think it's definitely brought an influence into Russia with Rasputin and his work, and even into the United States with Benjamin Franklin. And although, we're talking centuries ahead with between the both, even in dealing with Deshays being in like 1680, then you have, these 100-year leaps. And during the time in histories, there's vast amounts of different other elements going on. There's been billions of people that have passed before us on this earth. So we have a lot of corpses that we are living on. And I'm jumping ahead in time, even another century, by dealing with Benjamin Franklin and his activities with the Hellfire Club. However, America would never be established unless he went and got his funding and his secure, powers and military force through his occult activities and dealing with Paris. Because if he did not secure that bargain, which actually bankrupted the regime, Marie Antoinette during that time, put her under the guillotine at that time, drove France into ruin nearly during that time, all due to the fact of America's established order. Benjamin Franklin went there and got unlimited support from Paris, and it really brought France low with huge debt, and it wrecked their country basically. So America was established on the blood of Marie Antoinette. A lot of people don't know that. Marie Antoinette is a huge aspect of reality and why America exists today, because she told her husband to go ahead and do it. And she was going to abdicate to America. She was going to come to Maine, and they had a house built, and she sent over 3 ships, and she was going to escape the guillotine. People thought she was stupid, but really she was the power behind the throne. And she brought over her cats, and Marie was into witchcraft, and she was dabbling also in divination and didn't go or do anything without the efforts of her psychic. And her psychic, even days before her head reached the guillotine, told her to go now. But she didn't leave on time. She got caught up in it, defied her psychic, who actually really cared about her, unlike Hitler, who was in the last days of World War II being very deceived by his psychics, Hanhausen and Wolf. They were leading him purposefully down the wrong path, which is good because in modern times the weapons would have been much more destructive. And again, I'm leaping ahead in the historical record in dealing with things. But I'm releasing or showing the effect of witchcraft on our current states and why things are kind of seriously influenced by witchcraft throughout history.
And so when Marie Antoinette was going to leave, and she had been under the support of Ben Franklin, who had been given unlimited support by the French government, which which ultimately bankrupted the French government because they had sent over all of these weapons and monies to begin the colonies. And they were able to fight off the British through the French. People think that it was just George Washington running around with his little musket. It wasn't. It was clearly the intervention on Ben Franklin being an occultist and having ties to Marie Antoinette, which is why America is here today. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm not in love with America. I mean, it's interesting. It's borrowing, all of its money to pay its debts from China, who will eventually probably take receivership of this bankrupt country, and there'll be a lot of dead bodies over that when that time comes, probably in the next 40 years. But it will be eventually. China's probably going to run this whole place sooner or later. But as it stands, back in that time period, Marie also had the cat. She had a special cat. She had like a whole crate of like her little cats sent over in one of her ships. So it was kind of like a reverse, or not reverse, it was like her own Nina Pinta and whatever, little craft she sent over. They arrived and she didn't. And when they arrived, her cats got out, and it's like a big, furry, large, crazy cat called a Maine Coon. And it was running around Maine everywhere, and people were like seeing wildcats. And she loved the thing. And hence, that's why we have the Maine Coon, thanks to Marie Antoinette, because it became their national animal or whatever, or their state animal. And Marie Antoinette, when she hit the guillotine, she never told anyone to eat cake. That was propaganda on the part of her enemies that were angry at the monarchy, wanted to establish a more anarchic, socialistic society. It was really more about that. They saw an opportunity, seized it, and killed that woman and her husband, King and Queen of France. It would have been a different turn of events if Marie had made it, and there was even something that said that Marie did make it. There were people in the time of the colonies that said they were seeing this elegant woman that was living in Maine in this big house, and they couldn't make it heads or tails, and that she was passed off as a maid or something waiting for Marie's return or Marie's arrival. There was a lot of conspiracy at the time that Marie had made it. I am not sure. I have tried to remote view in on that, and that is very hard to ascertain for me, which leads me to believe that maybe she did, and through her own witchcraft, and knows how to barricade herself from these types of intrusions, even past and present, because that's how magic works. And we're going to get more into that, how magic works, later on in the Pentacle-Hours. Not today, and it would take a year to go into that and how that works, even in past and present, dealing even in the interventions or remote viewing or influencing or trying to ascertain events past and future. But, taking, for example, just like the Egyptian tombs, the way they have these certain sigils that block sight past and present. So it's quite possible that Marie did make it to the colonies after all, and that the person that met the guillotine was not her, but one of her copies, or one of her, she would call them doppeltorsos. Brutal woman, though, she was. She was brutal, but she never told them to let them eat cake. She, there was a beautiful film that came out, and it starred, I forget who it starred, but it was a beautiful, you only want to watch it on a Sunday. You don't want to watch it any other day of the week. But it depicted her all in just like this fluffy light, she's just this happy-go-lucky girl that just fell under the circumstance of the guillotine, and that's not correct. She played a preeminent role in a lot of things, and her husband was inept and totally not with it. So it's interesting how these events with witchcraft, through Benjamin Franklin and the Masonic aspects of things, even though he was more into Satanism and the evolution of electricity and practicing, and all these other things that he was into, debauchery especially, and connections with the Hellfire Club. And it's weird that he was connected with the Hellfire Club because the Hellfire Club was English. And they were at war with the English. So I don't know where he sits with everything. Or maybe he was playing both sides on the fence. That, yeah, if the colonies fell, he would still have a life. He would still be established. He would still be some lord in America under the king. Or he was, obviously playing both sides of the fence, bringing Marie Antoinette in, bringing influence. They had shared their witchcraft issues, and he had been given unlimited monies in order to establish the colonies through the financial support, which ultimately brought Marie to ruin and the Parisian economy to ruin. And I like Ben Franklin, and these hypotheses that I arrive at are kind of my own through my own research. It's not alternate history. It's just history that the propaganda machine, past or present, refuses to look at. You can't be a member of a secret society that is strictly English and Scottish and dark like that and satanic with intentions with all these different English lords, and still be, supposedly, an American and trying to establish the economy, or, the economy in the colonies, and also working the Paris aspect of things. So he seems to be almost like a double agent. And he probably was even a triple agent. Very similar to, even in World War II with Hess. And Hess was running all kinds of different things. He was going to try to broker a deal during World War II to end, the conflict with England prior to World War II breaking out against England. And he flew in and he was captured and he was almost given up or something. He was trying to be some double agent, but they just put him in the slammer and kept him as some kind of tool. Winter Lake at winterlake.com. It's nice to be with you today. This is Freya's Eve in December. I don't know. Is it 1776? I'm not sure. I don't think they had radio in 1776. But they did have telepathy, possibly, or ways to ruminate on conjurations ethereal. And it's interesting as we do the Pentacle-Hours live from 5 to 7 every day. It definitely can be illuminating. Had a lot of people respond in different ways. Some people love it, some people hate it. And for me, it's just an experiment in time. And I hope it moves forward. But if it doesn't, then there's other things to do. I'm a very busy person. I do have a lot of different things to do. And for this past 2013, it's definitely been eventful and active. I made it active, though. And that goes to carpe noctem. You have to seize your night, and carpe diem, seize your day. So you just don't sleep. You write and create all the time, and you never stop doing what you're doing. Don't get caught up in negativity, and definitely don't allow people to drag you down or, even deal with that. And if it doesn't want to come along, then just leave it behind, because that's where it will stay. 2014 is amazing already, setting up. There's been some things that are going to start to happen for 2014, which will take myself into a whole nother reality, even more so than 2013 did. And that's just really good. And I recommend anybody who is a practitioner or into witchcraft or looking to go forward in their lives to plan and complete goals and to set things in motion that will create the summation of decisions to be finalized and to come true. Don't wish upon a star. Just take action on things that you want to accomplish and do them. it is easier said than done, and it's beyond just trying to do a resolution of something. A resolution to me is really annoying. You know, it's talking with people, as I said, with these runes and things. They're like, oh, I haven't done, people are like, I haven't done my resolution since 2011. That's just tired. That's just stupid. That's like leading the horse to the same trough of water where they need to stay and they need to drink. There's nothing new under the sun, supposedly. I don't even know why people make resolutions. You just have to make goals and then accomplish them one by one. And it is harder to do than easier, said than done, supposedly. But I plan on doing more so in 2014. You can email me at wolfloki@yahoo.com, WOLFLOKI, at Yahoo. And if you want to call in to the Pentacle-Hours show, you can call in at 773-217-8344. I'll try to take your call. I missed some calls yesterday because I was just kind of self-absorbed. As I was said a couple days ago, I was told I was self-absorbed. But back to this thing with time and how projection in time, remote viewing, and trying to ascertain events as they really occurred happens in remote viewing. And I utilize the term remote viewing, although it is a codified government term that was spun by SHRI, the psychical research program brought on by the United States government in the 80s and still ongoing today in various forms. And that's not to be confused with the psychical research in England, which is really kind of a cool thing. They sign people up. My friend Jenny Butler has some kind of connection with the psychical research in England. The two are not to be confused. But the term remote viewing could be considered clairvoyance. You're looking into the past or the present, but not necessarily clairaudience, which has to deal with sound or finding sound or how people sounded in different ages or stages of reality and time. But I have gone and looked into the past in trying to ascertain what Marie Antoinette was up to. It's not a fetish for me. It was just something with her doesn't ring right. And that's how it occurs with me. If an individual just doesn't ring right with me, I want to figure it out. I just want to figure it out, past or present. It's my nature to do so, and I have the power to do so, and I usually always do follow my own instinct. And that's an imperative thing for any practitioner, to follow their instinct overall. However, in other shows, as I have said, instinct can be tampered with, intuition can be tampered with. So you want to gauge it with other things. And what I mean tampering is like others can bring intention, magical intention, to alter how you feel about things. They can shift a lover into a hater in days. I've seen it done, man. So you got to be careful. And it's been done on me. So you just got to watch it. You got to have up those barricades. Try to. Or wear your sigil emblem or whatever is close to you that will protect you from such forces. And that's how I came to the conclusion about Marie Antoinette and her activities. Some things are widely known, but, especially this whole, shadow project that she was in involving her magical explorations. And, she obviously attained the queenhood. She didn't necessarily want to be queen. Married into it as emerging, I think, of Germany or Paris or something to prevent war. So it was odd that Benjamin Franklin and his interference brought about the payments and the bankruptcy of that regime to pay for the establishment of the colonies. And Benjamin Franklin was a triple agent, and he was out for himself as a center. I think, in the conclusions of some of my remote viewing, and I try to go back in time and watch him. He's just a traitorous fellow, and he's on the $100 bill, and that's where he belongs because he made it. He did it. He made his name last through time. And, I don't normally slam the founders of America, and I'm not slamming him. It's just a revelation. And George Washington was into some nefarious things as well. All of them were. They were all kind of weird. But you'd have to be weird if you were going to try to establish a new form of government. And they're still weird as of today, and it's just endless. But I'm talking about this moment in time and remote viewing and what I'd seen. But George Washington really, his activities had to deal, he was guided more by providence. He would have these visions, and he had some Indians appear to him and give him guidance, and he was always really into that aspect of things, being led by some voice. And again, what voice was he being led by or manipulated by is unsure, because witchcraft was afoot across the world, and it was really at its optimum peak. So you have George thinking he's seeing visions to carry on some kind of fight, which probably was at the behest of someone else's intention. You have Benjamin Franklin, who is working all sides against the middle with his own interests at heart, being a member of the Hellfire Club, schmoozing with Paris and Marie Antoinette, and working the colonies into some kind of established order. So he almost worked all three different countries, with the intent that if America fell, he could still be a lord in America, and, if it didn't, he would end up being on the $100 bill. Empathic eye that will not blink, the astral door that will not close. Your love like a storm overtakes and will not decipher. I am lost to you at the breaker. Tightly shut in the abyss of locks, appearing and disappearing in shocks. Should I cast the spell, be one with the masquerade, drown in the triangle of the waves and charades? Deny me in transfiguration. Deny me through the doors of storm. Take on your black cat demure, feign familiar form. Elegance by crook and by hook. I parlay on, but the ship went down. Elusive Lorelei knows intimately those that drown. Pass above me, haunted one, for this is my last omission, my last transmission. In undertow the siren moors and lures me further to cast me out. The curse I carry, chains of you, more to be bound. I know no country, no solid footing, a shape-shifted ground. In this witch house, only a mariner's debacle can be found. Many scream, pride is my splinter. Pride, the thorn in my side, takes me under the aether tide. I grasp for the arid whisper. Our Lady Hecate knows better. Last gasps reach for the line. Others advance to break the omen sign. Infiltrates the puncture in a world without anchor, this palisade of skeletal rancor. Dead men know no haven. In Saturn Day, darling, I died long ago. Should I return to the land of the living? This is the question imposed, or be on with the show. That was Doors of Storm. I wrote that and published that in one of my recent books, past two. It's beautiful. I wrote it down in New Orleans when I was visiting with my friend Brittany Vipond, actually. Creature of the night. Trying to get around her. Very busy little succubus. I do find New Orleans to be fascinating and very hard to get in and out of with all of the tragedy down there. Because you can take these long walks out on the beach and it's just desolation and destruction. It's kind of interesting. But you have to be careful in the graveyards. There's a lot of shenanigans in the graveyards because they're elevated. So you can get robbed, beaten up, or shanghaied right there somewhere around. And definitely if you're a girl, don't go there alone. Rape and other things happen all the time, and people vanish all the time in the New Orleans area. And it's so weird because people converge on there. It's kind of like your Burning Man of the South, but always on. And then Burning Man is a whole nother animal. 100,000 people out in this desert environment, running around trying to have sex with everything and doing massive amounts of narcotics. I don't know. I was going to fly in and land on the airstrip out there one time years ago to Burning Man, but I never went. I even had a free pass, and I still get free passes. I can go, but I just don't want to spend days in the desert getting stinky. I don't know. It's just not my thing, man. And that's really what happens because people don't realize there's no showers in the desert. You really don't have the best running things happening out there, and you can run out of food, and if you're on all the drugs and you're up all day and up all night and up all day and the sun is baking your mind, I mean, you can go insane out there, and people have. During the last Burning Man event, somebody was, I think, they either said he leapt into the burning fiery man thing that they construct, or he was picked up and thrown in. Nobody could figure it out. But he burned to death along with the Burning Man. And this has been happening once every year, and they don't talk about this too much. They cover this up, which they should, because then it would cancel the party, wouldn't it? But it's not really a party, it's an event. And they're trying to keep it, it's been going for 20 years or something. They're trying to keep it into a ritualistic atmosphere. The artists that go are trying to bring something new to the cauldron every year. And there are really some amazing different artworks and philosophy and different people that go there. And I guess if you have your $100,000 RV and you don't work and, you just kind of plan it once a year where you can go down and sell a bunch of something and hang out and talk philosophy all day under the boiling sun and under the cold evening night, it might be worthwhile. And I might go this coming year. I say that every year. It's kind of like Babylon Rising in Indiana. I tell them, yeah, I'm going to go every year, and I never go. So I always miss these elaborate parties. But I think I'm going to be having some people on the radio on the Pentacle-Hours show talking about it down the road, about Burning Man, about events in the city that are actually Chicago's Burning Man, called the Freakeasy. I haven't even attended that, but the people want me to go to that too, which would probably be a lot of fun. I hear it's really wild, and people just go all night and all day. And, the bar shuts off and the bar turns on. But really, they're more about just getting stoned and being a hippie in 2014. And I think that's interesting. And it's an interesting lifestyle that is developing around the entire Burning Man culture, which was established at the Isle of Man in England in dealing with the concept of a pagan holiday, a pagan sacrifice of a wicker man that was burned in order to renew crops and so on. Not that horrible movie by Nick Cage, no. I mean, there was actually one with, made in the 70s that was awesome. It had really cool stars in it, and I love the soundtrack to it and all this. And it had everything to do with pagan ideology, Satanism and so on, luring some Christian guy into being burned alive. Very similar to what they just did to somebody at the Burning Man festival this past year. Supposedly picked him up and threw him into the fire. And I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know. I mean, I think he may have committed suicide, but this has been happening now like once every year. Somebody is like thrown into the big Burning Man thing and torched alive. And there's some dark characters there, man. Like major, like people, not major, but just, they're not the most wholesome, lovey-dovey types of people there. You get these old croons there now that are like, preying on young girls and all this crap. And that takes away from the whole philosophy of what Burning Man is, or philosophy of what pagan ideology they're trying to establish. And I think it's just tired. And maybe they need to reevaluate who they're letting in over there. Stream at QUE4.org. Although if you're listening on QUE4.org, then you already know that. It's kind of a freezing glacial day here in Chicago. I was in New York a couple days ago, and it was kind of cold, but it feels like it's more Christmassy there. I don't know. It's a really fun place to be. Get and walk through Central Park, Upper West Side, and just kind of take it all in and go over to the Dakota building where John Lennon was assassinated, and where Cher lives or something, and get to visit some interesting people. I like New York. I'll probably keep a place there someday soon. Maybe in 2014. I haven't decided yet. I think I'm going to keep a place in Los Angeles too, but I haven't decided that yet either. So I could be bi-coastal or something, or whatever they call that. A little bit more easier than in and out of trafficking hotels or friends. I'm not really a couch surfer, although a couple of my friends want to be a couch surfer in my house, and I'm like, no, bro, can't do it. Go move back home with mommy or something. Which has been an epidemic amongst some of these dudes. They're broke and scratching whatever they can get, and it's kind of tired. They need to up the bar and I guess get a new car. But I'm not getting a new car. I'm not dealing with any more cars for a while. I've crashed too. So I better lay off of that. Too many late nights or late days or whatever you want to call it. I was analyzing the internet yesterday, kind of going over it with my philosopher's mind. And I kind of see it almost like a house of mirrors. That you get what you plug in, obviously, but it's fed to you, curtailed to what you want to see. I think there's not really any objective thinking in one single search engine that dominates all of our consciousness, being Google, for example. I think there needs to be more subjective theory with that, or other search engines that pop up automatically. But I don't know how that works. I mean, Google is running the field on all information. And as I said in a couple shows ago, information is not knowledge, but it is the controller of our society. It is how we are getting, spoon-fed our delirium. But in looking at the house of mirrors being the internet, you plug in something and you're all in agreement. It's all, encouraged group monkey think, and it can be extremities and radicalizing and whatever. And it also, it talks into tribes that get polarized, and, we're all one together, You don't really get any kind of other thing, other than speaking to the converted. And generally, we don't even go beyond the first page of our search engine. So we'll plug in spoon-fed results that we automatically desire, and we don't even go any further. It's just we're becoming more lazy, and we're letting the search engine even think for us, or, dissipate our knowledge further. And so I've been practicing, techniques in order to try to prevent that, and trying to think about things and analyze them myself. But it's very hard. It's very hard without just crushing right in on the search engine, being Google, and getting your automatic answer. It's beginning to think for us, and it has been for the past decade. it almost becomes a fool's dilemma, because you're going to be totally reliant on this machine. I don't know, we almost have to rethink our fundamental selves, almost becoming some kind of super cognitive. But it's imperative to avoid the moron in the mirror, to see what the internet is actually doing to our cognition and our mental prowess. I think it is enfeebling us, and it is making us not be on it the way we really should. And it garners overestimated confidence. I think overestimated confidence needs to be dialed back. I probably need to dial back mine as well. But doubt advances us, and just to accept everything that is spoon-fed to us defeats us. If we can tamper with the cognitive optimism and create more doubt and not be so spoon-fed into our single-page search engines, then I think we will be able to be more powerful thinkers, more powerful graspers of our reality, and channel our consciousness in a more direct manner. And it to be heightened in our awareness. As a psychic perception, that is what I see. I see it as a deadening of certain aspects of our mentality, that we are becoming too reliant on this subjective universe being the internet search engine of Google. And there's really no other offerings out there that we really go to. We go to one giant mastermind system that is codifying and solidifying all of our information. And information is not knowledge, but it is the weapon of the future. Because information is all being stored on the search engine, and it's important not to believe what's all there, because it's all been inaccurate, We always seek the comfort of the crowd, and the comfort of the crowd in our group monkey think is becoming the Google search engine. It's easy to go on there, you plug yourself in, and you find a bunch of agreeers. You find 10,000 agreeers with your bias, your magical belief system or something that you intuit, and then you suddenly think that the entirety of the consciousness and totality are all in agreement, when really you're just a small little fraction that is being spoon-fed your results. Very similar to the influencing done by therapists and things, one-on-one, where you go into a therapist and they're just bouncing you, they're mirroring you, and they're leading you, and you don't even realize it, which is something to be very subjective about and to watch for, because the internet does the same thing. The internet is a house of mirrors, and it will mirror exactly what you want, because you are plugging in, like a maimed pigeon, all your misfortunes or knowledges that you seek, and the hand has just met you and reaches out to you in the comfort of a supposed crowd. And as a black magic practitioner, or if you're into witchcraft or whatever you're following, it is imperative to seek the comfort of your instinct. You need to know your instinct and know thyself and know your consciousness, and to follow it to a certain letter, and to know if it's being tampered with as well. I think the comfort of instinct is much more imperative than the comfort of the crowd. The comfort of the crowd is confirmation bias. It almost begins into self-deception, or makes it easier to be deceived. And self-deception is not really, as I have dabbled in discussing, the overcoming of fear. Self-deception is very imperative if you are overcoming fear. Fear-based anxiety can be tricked. And you can trick yourself into success, and tricking yourself into not thinking of the giant barricade that you are facing. But you can overcome your obstacle through self-deception. And that is an interesting aspect of something of a mentality which we will explore later. But what I am talking about is the consciousness channeling done by the internet as a house of mirrors that feeds you group monkey think and makes you into some kind of, prism that you're locked in, and you are only seeing yourself, and you are only seeing your ideas reflected back at you in a fool's dilemma. And I think through the comfort of black magical instinct and through divination and tools of runes and tarot cards and subjective thinking and the philosopher's concept, you can escape this prism and be able to look outside of it. And it is becoming more and more entrenched. We as a humanity are becoming more and more entrenched in our reliance on the search engine, and the search engine is becoming our only accoutrement to our freedom and our liberation. And it can soon enough become an accoutrement of our imprisonment and our prism and our whole encapsulated reality that we find ourselves as sheeple. So you rethink your fundamental self through becoming supercognitive, through challenging your mind. And it's not just even some of these nonsensical things that I see called luminosity or something. I'm talking about actually challenging your mind through thinking and analyzing something alone unto yourself, by yourself, looking at it in all of its advances and solving the problem alone. And not being fed a problem to solve, but solving something within your own life, or solving something like I do every day here on the Pentacle-Hours. I look at all different things from the past, present, and the future, and I like to solve them. I like to look at things and analyze them during this short time that we have together. I like to look at that and analyze things, and I grasp onto larger grandiose questions, or it can be the most minute and personified, simplistic aspects, as I am a contrarian. But, the whole search engine reality that we are living under is tampering with the cognitive. It is, and you're not really getting anything out of it. You can, through self-deception, overcome fear and succeed in impossible odds. But I do believe the wisdom of a crowd is ignorant. I do not think the crowd or some therapist really has your betterment in mind. I think they're just analyzing and spoon-feeding you and leading you. And it's important as a practitioner of magic to lead yourself and follow your instincts. Although, as I keep reinforcing, instincts can be manipulated by high-power magicians like myself as well. And I have been and overestimated that. So even instinct itself, unto itself, needs to be checked as well. Because that can lead you into a fool's dilemma. And, no one really wants to be a fool. But we do end up, sometimes on the short end of the stick. And it's important to realize it, to accept it. That, hey, you didn't win this one, or, it could have went this way. But how can we resolve it to find a resolution in order to bring about a new clarity, a new realization, and a new liberation? Because if you don't, then you're just living in some kind of nonsense. You're living and repeating the same mistakes over. You're kind of like a monkey just constantly jumping to the next branch. You're not analyzing the issues that you have, and you're just allowing things to build up into some kind of, super destructive state, or, suicidal almost to the point. And I think it's not really me delving into some kind of elegy of gloom and doom or elegy of evil or something, as, some people have stated that I get a tendency to be too negative. And I want to aspire to get away from the negative, and I'm not bringing a negative in this discussion of the internet and its effect on us as a house of mirrors. If one is caught into the search engine reality, that you're over-reliant on it, then you need to check yourself. You need to say, hey, I need to do some of my own investigative force. I need to bring some of my own cognition into the fore. And how can I bring about effective change in my own life to make advances and accept defeats and to become a greater. Winterlake.com. It's nice to be with you today, this Freya's Day in December. 2014 is fastly approaching. It's going to be a really good year, I think. 2013 was amazing. It was definitely a roller coaster ride in my life. It was a fun ride. It was a real fun ride. I think 14 is going to be even better ride. And then I think I'm going to check out. No, I'm just kidding. You never know. I mean, I was going to mention to touch in on death a couple days ago, and again, not try to be so gloom and doom, and you know, a lot of people are down and tired and whatever, and it's just time to snap out of it. You know, it's time to grasp onto something and make something happen in life, and not to be so nihilistic. But I do think that death is only the beginning. There are atheistic and self-worshippers that think it begins and ends here with planet Earth. And in my personal experience with the supernatural, I do not think it begins and ends here. I think that's way too limited in thinking and the process of that. Death with the occurrences of ghost activity, poltergeist activity, which poltergeist activity is a little different. It has to do with ghosts or phenomena of the mind, possibly ghosts that are created by the mind as an action, as a deflection, where possibly in another room a whole shelf will tip over due to some kind of manifestation of the mind that, you know, they call poltergeistic. And there's a fine line. It could be, you know, an actual entity that is causing said destructive behavior, or it could be the mind lashing out at something, because we still know very little about it, even though the massive amounts of money are being spent right now in the mapping of the mind, which is underway. And if they can map the mind, then they will be able to match it through to a computer that will make it almost nanocellular and so on, which they can, you know, begin to learn more about the mind and a machine and merging and singularity. But death, I think, can be extended. I think that we, as a human being, can achieve life extension through seeing that aging is more disease than an actual outcome. We've allowed death to get away from us way too long. And it's probably, you know, going to be overcome in our lifetime. Through nanocellular technology being injected into the bloodstream, you'll be able to reconfigure us as a human creature and kind of re-rectify us, rejuvenate us, renewed vitality and vigor, cleaning out the cancers of bloodstreams and making us all perfect, I suppose. Kind of like that song 2525. Although I don't think that we will have to wait that long. It may happen in our lifetime that we perceive life extension. Clearly it will be a population issue. But if we can achieve life extension, then space will no longer be an obstacle for us, because we will be able to go out into space and time, and it will not be relevant to our existence, because we would have achieved almost eternal existence through the merging of our machines. But death, as it is quantified now, does and will continue to occur, and cancers will, you know, rive and destroy this population, and so will a series of other catastrophic events as we, you know, move forward. So as it stands now, death is there, but even that death is not final. I do not think that the soul extinguishes once the individual body or husk or whatever is gone. I do think it goes out into the aether, is absorbed by greater, stronger creatures, or reincarnates itself in one form or another, and not necessarily here to earth. I think atheism, is a little limited in the perception, the denial of the hand in front of your face. It is self-worship, and a lot of Satanists practice it, and a lot of just outright atheists say so. And that is their right to be, and that is fine. And I am not bringing challenge to atheism. It is an existent philosophy. It is a strong philosophy, and it really is on the rise as well, more so than anything, because as the church edict dies and lacks the fulfilling enlightenment that it could bring to people, it could or never could bring to people, then they're going to be very analytical and blatant and say, yes, I'm an atheist. I do not think there is anything else. I think it is just going to be darkness and blackness of purgatorial ruin, and I might as well live it up while I'm here, and that's fine. But as a black magic practitioner, I've sort of seen into things, and I think there is more out there. We live in an unlimited universe as a limited universe. And many people can limit their universe or bring about their apocalypse end any day or any time of the week, any hour, because we are all the summation of our choices. And we can change on a dime. Just like the rune readings or tarot or anything. All of it is subjective. Nothing is locked in stone. But not everything is permitted, despite the old mantra, all is permitted, nothing is true. There is truth, but truth changes, and not everything is permitted, because then you would bring about absolute destruction. If everything was permitted, everything would die, everything would be destroyed, because our evil would overwhelm us as an inherent creature of earth. And that's really where we are. We are all ground-based terrestrial creatures. Even though we may have grandiose flights into freedom or silence or reality, and we perceive that our mind is racing through time, and we are experiencing amazing, new, revolutions. All of it is happening right here on Earth, within the 5-mile scale of your existence, like a little rat running around in a cage. We are in a prison. And we have certain needs that have to be met, and if they're not met, then you end up being some filthy beggar on the street, especially when you run out of money, or like not a lot, but a few people that I know that just end up being couch surfers or live with their mother. So, it's imperative to know the ground as well as the heavens, as above, so below. And whatever heavens that may be, whatever word that means. I don't think there's a heaven with a bearded God up there either myself. That's all just cudgel to be given to sheep, and, I don't seek a shepherd to bind me. I am my own road. And it's been very nice to be with you this Friday, Freya's Day in December, and heard me and a slight little tirades are going on into different things that I have been thinking about. But nothing too out of the ordinary. The studio is starting to liven up. I hear crowds of people gathering outside. So it's quite interesting. They have a full studio here with bands, and different artists come in and show their work, or different philosophers come in and speak their mind, or anarchists talk about their way to bring some kind of political upheaval in order to secure a new life for everyone in general. So it's quite an interesting group of different individuals that meet up here. And there's hundreds of them. And I myself included, being Winter Lake.